Hello and welcome to a new video. In today's video we're going to take a look at the top 10 teams for the Jungle Cup. Today we're also going to have a little bit more of a meta-analysis again for this cup because it is going to be quite a bit different towards what we usually seen, and usually I'm not the biggest fan of the Jungle Cup in the Great League Edition here, which is generally very cool. They have a Great League Cup here instead of usually where it is in the Little Cup, but today we're actually going to have a little bit of a shift towards the meta with a recent meta update. And honestly, this cup looks amazing. And so, feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy those videos. But let's move right into the meta analysis here. Taking a look now at the meta, we're going to see here, of course, also the rules that we quick before. Pokemon are only allowed here, of course, which you already know for 1500 CP. Only normal grass, electric, poison, ground, flying, bug, and dark type Pokemon are eligible. And we're going to have no Gligar and no Galarian Stunfisk being allowed. This cup is generally a very interesting one, and I'm very much excited for this cup to air now on Pokemon Go, because what we see here is an absolutely kind of completely different meta than what you see normally. Yes, of course, there are some Pokemon in that you would see otherwise as well, like Altaria, like the Corviknight here, for example, or Diggersby. But generally speaking, it's a different meta. It has some different interesting core breakers like the Piloswine here, which I find quite interesting. What we see here as well on the right side is the score. For most of the limited metas that we have seen currently, the score goes down quite fast. This is not the case here. We're going to see that basically the score stays kind of at a very solid range there to quite a lot of those Pokemon that are eligible for this cup. And what this means is that there are a lot of Pokemon that have a lot of play. And with the limited metas, there are going to be some interesting hidden core breakers that we're mostly going to be able to find throughout the week, which makes it very interesting. But anyway, here you're going to see the core meta. There's going to be the Pokemon that you can kind of expect. But again, there are Pokemon like Piloswine, which apparently are going to be very good. Or the Zweilous here. Or even the Evolution Hydreigon going to be here as well, which is going to be an interesting Pokemon for this meta. And with that, we can move on to team number 1. So after this, we're going to be able to now take a look at team number 1. Team number 1, of course, is going to have the main Pokemon in there, which is going to be that Altaria. Altaria is going to be great in this meta. Having the coverage of Sky Attack and Flamethrower gives a lot of versatility in this meta as well, and especially Flamethrower helps you to hit Pokemon like Fortress, which is going to be our safe-up for this team. Gastron in the back is going to be able to deal with those Steel-type Pokemon that you might not want to face unless you have energy advantage with Flamethrower, but generally allows you to hit a lot of the Pokemon that you struggle against otherwise. But also a good alternative for team number 1 is going to be the Scissor on the back, which will allow you to hit the Pokemon that you're weak to, which you see in difficult matchups tab there, for a little bit better. Like Moltres doesn't really like to have the 2-shield matchup against Scissor, and of course you have Night Slash, which is going to be super effective against that Drifblim. But I'm not too sure if we're going to see a lot of Drifblim in this meta anyway. To be fair, it actually doesn't look that bad. It actually looks like a really good Pokemon, so maybe we're going to see it a little bit more often there. Team number 2. We're going to have a team here around Charizard and Guzzlord. I think that's a very cool core for this meta. What you're going to have here is, of course, a few Fairy-type Pokemon, but you have with Charizard a Pokemon that can deal with those Pokemon here, but also you're going to have with Credilli a bait for that. Because Credilli is going to have the Acid, it's actually going to be great against Fairy-type Pokemon like the, forgot the name, the Dene, which honestly actually I should have put in here as a core breaker because it breaks the lead and the closer. My bad. Because at the end of the day, yeah, like it's not good in the lead. Any other position is actually alright because Credilli is a really good answer to the Dedenne, but it's like a core breaker for the lead and the back Pokemon there for our closer, which is going to be the Guzzlord. So my mistake there. But otherwise, the team doesn't really have a weakness. I don't think that Clodsire is a weakness for this team. I don't think that Credilli is a weakness for this team either. I think the Dedenne can be a bit tricky here, but the Dedenne is also not one of the core meta Pokemon in this team. But we're still going to have some teams around this Pokemon here today. But yeah, this is going to be a very interesting core. I think it's a cool core. You're going to have a double weakness of fighting in the back, but not really a lot of good fighting type Pokemon in this meta from what I've seen so far, so you don't really have to worry too much about it. But even then, you have your Charizard as your answer, your Credilli as a bait, and then Guzzlord to clean out games in this meta. Next up, we're going to have Thievul. You're going to be able to use other Pokemon, like for example the Shadow Mightyena, which I saw Homeslice Henry doing quite well with in the Open Great League recently. You can put this Pokemon in front here as well, but Thievul is at least my favorite because you have the great pacing to Night Slash. Like that's why I like Thievul so much. You don't only have a Pokemon that has a lot of fast move pressure, you also have a Pokemon that gets to those charge moves really fast to pressure opponents into those scenarios that you don't really want to be in. And there are a lot of different kind of ways of playing this team here. And actually one thing that I maybe even like a little bit more is having the Fortress in the back and the Rodriguez as a Say-Stop here, because what this allows you to do is just to have an ABC style line, which is kind of cool for Thievul, because Thievul has that much potential against so many Pokemon here right now, being able to just be very neutral against a lot of Pokemon, so you can play out the lead matchup and then still align your backline, which would make a lot of sense as well. So I think this is a very cool team. I think Thievul is a very, very good Pokemon that is most likely flying a little bit under most people's radar for this meta, and so I kind of want to showcase it here, and you should hopefully have some success with this Pokemon. Dedenne is of course a little bit of an evil Pokemon for this meta, but honestly I think for this team actually Lantern is a little bit better, because it's going to allow you to have no weakness against those ground type Pokemon that are also part Ice type, which is basically just Piloswine. I think there were a few more Pokemon that I was a bit worried about. Yeah, Clodsire for example I was a little bit more worried about as well, or like a Steelix. You're going to have a little bit more play with your Lantern with a Water Gun here, but Dedenne is of course generally speaking the stronger Pokemon, so I still kind of want to add it in here as well. We have Sableye as our Say-Stop. You can also use Spiritomb there, or you can go for a double, Flying Dark Bird backline here as well if you want to go for that one. For example, yeah, of course, the Murkrow Say-Stop and then having the Moltres in the back would make a lot of sense, as Murkrow is going to be a better generalist, while, Moltres has a better closing potential with the Charge Moves that it packs, or the Brave Bird mainly as well there. So yeah, I still think it's going to be a very good team. I do think that Lantern especially is going to be a very good Pokemon in this meta that I think a lot of people don't really expect to see currently. And so we can kind of reverse this here a little bit as well. We're going to have here now the Moltres or the Murkrow in the lead, and we're going to have the Dunsparce as our Say-Stop, and then we have like a ground type Mud Slapper in the back, because you kind of need to have that for those Steel type Pokemon especially. You kind of want to have an answer for them, and this is kind of the way to go here. I do like the combination of Murkrow and Dunsparce in this meta. I think it's going to be a great combination, because Dunsparce actually counters the Pokemon that Murkrow doesn't want to face, and vice versa basically. But because they're next to no Fighting type Pokemon, Dunsparce is quite safe. But also because of like the answers currently that are up there for Murkrow, like the usual answers that you would have there, like the ground type Pokemon that you see in the back, don't always help against them. Actually, I think it would be better for you, by the way, to run the Gastron in the back over the Clodsire just for the Piloswine matchup. But yeah, generally, I think Murkrow really helped. The Dunsparce Murkrow core, I think, is really well nice together here. I think it just works out super well. Of course, Moltres and Murkrow, in my opinion, need the same Pokemon, so you can use either of them if you want to. But I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to be a very cool one there, and I do think that actually Gastron is a little bit better in the back there just for the Piloswine. This is going to be a very common team here, I think, that we're going to see. We're going to have one of those ground-type Pokemon. I could see Piloswine being a little bit even better here for this team than the Gastrodon, because we see the difficult matchup. That's going to be Altaria. That's actually a difficult matchup, but you can also mitigate this a little bit as well. For example, go for Dragon Brush Charizard. Go for Togekiss in the back. And then you can still keep your Gastrodon there without having any issues against this Pokemon here of Altaria. So it depends on how you want to kind of form your own team there. I think that it definitely does work out with Gastron as well. I think I would more say not go for Corviknight Charizard there then, unless you have Charizard with Dragon Breath, or if you're going to have like Togekiss there in the back, it would make more sense there as well. But generally, this is going to be like an archetype that you're going to see quite often in this cup, I think. Having a ground type and then two flying type Pokemon in the back just makes a lot of sense for this meta. It just should work out quite well, as long as you kind of have an answer for also the Piloswine. Speaking of Piloswine, we're going to have here another interesting core combination here that I like a lot. Because Piloswine is also functioning as an anti-ground type, it kind of helps to set up those electric type Pokemon. And the same goes also here for the Charjabug. Because Charjabug has that bug typing as a secondary type, it's actually cool to have as a Say-Stop here with the Dedenne in the back. Because the Dedenne in the back plus Charjabug, like Charjabug baits out the ground type Pokemon while still being able to hit them for neutral damage with the Exeter, which actually works out quite well for you. And even against like Pokemon like Gastron, you're going to have potential options to win that matchup. But as you're gonna see as well, this team like this works out super well. They're going to be alternatives as well with like the flying type Pokemon, which you talked about before already. You can even use Altaria in the back. But I think the combination of Piloswine and Dedenne is a really good core right now that should work out quite well, and also counters the most common Pokemon, Altaria, quite hard here as well. Team number 8, we're going to have Diggersby. I like the Diggersby Gyarados core. I think it's just a perfect combination of two Pokemon. kind of counters each other's weaknesses out perfectly. And again, we're going to have the Lantern here in the back. Lantern is going to be a good Pokemon to run here, as it's going to allow you to just be so neutral against a lot of the Pokemon, and also very good against the Pokemon that you don't want to face as a Diggersby, like the Runerigas or the Piloswine there as well. Like Runerigas is quite alright still. It's like has on both sides that we have double resisted fast move damage there. But yeah, against Pokemon like here, for example, yeah, the Piloswine or the Diggersby, you're going to have a lot more play with Lantern, with Water Gun, but also with the Gyarados. And Gyarados here is also mainly there to counter out, hopefully, Credilius, because actually 2-shot scenario for Gyarados against Credilius is quite nice. But yeah, basically this is going to be a very solid team there as well. It kind of counters as well the double flying type archetype in the back there as well, thanks to Lantern being a Pokemon that resists the flying type damage there. You have alternatives here as well with the Dragonite as a Pokemon that you can run in the back as well. Going to make it a little bit easier against Cordelius. You're going to get to the superpower a little bit faster. But yeah, this is going to be it for this team. I think it's going to be a cool team to run. I think Gyarados Diggersby core definitely works out quite well. Diggersby mainly here, by the way, for the fire type coverage, which allows you to hit Pokemon like Fortress for double super effective damage, or Scissor for like the one shot there. We have to kind of talk a little bit about Wigglytuff, because I think this Pokemon is actually quite solid in this meta. And again, we're going to have Dunsparce here to kind of counter the weaknesses of this Pokemon. What is it weak to? Mainly Steel and Poison type Pokemon, and kind of Fire type Pokemon. And all of those you can hit with Dunsparce, which is kind of why Dunsparce is here. And that's also why Lantern is here again as well in the back. I think this is a very, very solid team to run. It's not toxic team. It is absolutely not toxic. Again, I guess Credilli, you could say, is a little bit more tricky for this team to deal with, but with the recent Phasma update for Wigglytuff as well, it is not too bad as you get to the ice event quite a bit faster. Dunsparce is quite neutral, and even Lantern can still deal with it. It's not the worst matchup there generally, but definitely Credilli can be a little bit of a trickier one here for this team. But yeah, we can move on to team number 10 now, where we will have a team around Malamar. I think that Malamar is actually quite solid for this meta. Malamar is going to be able to do a lot of fast move pressure, unless you're going to encounter a Dark type Pokemon, and for those, we're going to have here Fortress in the back with a Volt Switch, by the way. I think it's kind of cool for this team. I think Volt Switch, Fortress generally going to have a lot of play in this meta, but that's kind of something I wanted to keep a little bit more for a video, so yeah, stay tuned for that. But also generally here a little bit for the people that kind of listen until the end of the video. I think Volt Switch Fortress is something that you have to kind of take a look at, because it's going to allow you to get to moves like Rock Tomb faster, which makes having a better matchup against Altaria, especially in the 2 shields. You can also go for the non-shadow one there, which maybe is a little bit better even for it as well. It's going to be better against other Fortress. It's going to be better against Corviknight. It's going to be definitely better in so many matchups just to get to the energy faster, which I do think is going to be an interesting shout for this Pokemon. I could even see the non-shadow one with Earthquake or Sand Tomb. But yeah, this is going to be it for this video. I think it's a cool team here to run. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave a like, and I will see you then. Bye bye.